So I'm going to open a new tab and show you this Graph API endpoint. That's https graph.facebook.com/version 2.8. So this is the root of Graph API. Now, depending on what piece of information we need, we add something to this endpoint. For example, back in our Facebook app, let's say I want to work with this public profile permission. Click this question mark. Here you can see an explanation of what this permission does. And if you read this line, a person's public profile refers to the following properties on the user object by default. So this Graph API has various objects, and each object is available at an endpoint. If you click this takes you to the documentation for Graph API. So here's the endpoint, /user ID. Now, if you scroll down, under fields, you can see various attributes about a user, like their ID, their about, age range, birthday, cover, and so on. So back here, here's the endpoint we're interested in. Now we need the user's ID. So I'm going to go back here and temporarily copy this back to our new tab. Here's the root of Graph API. I'm going to add that here. Now we need to specifically ask for the fields we're interested in. So I'm going to ask for first name, comma, last name, comma, gender. Now here we need to add our access token. So and access underline token equals, and now I'm going to go back in our Firebase database and copy that access token. Here it is, copy, back here. I'm going to add this access token here. And this is the response, a simple JSON object with these 4 properties that we asked for. So this validates that we can access Graph API successfully. Now we want to do the same thing in our Angular app. We can use Angular HTTP service to call this endpoint and get the result. So back in our component, I'm going to import HTTP service from @angular/HTTP. And then I'm going to inject it into the constructor. And finally, in ng-on-init, if the user is logged in, instead of logging something in the console, I'm going to call Graph API. So let's declare URL. I'm going to use backtick because I'm going to use a template string. So https graph.facebook.com/v2.8. Now here we need to add the ID of user on Facebook. So $ curly braces, and here we pass auth state dot facebook.uid. Now we add query string, specify the fields. Let's say first underline name, comma, last underline name. And access underline token equals. Now here we need access token, and we need to get it from our user object in our Firebase database. So temporarily, I'm going to add this placeholder, and then I'm going to fill it later. I'm going to declare another variable, userRef, and set it to angularfire.database.object/users. Now here we need the Firebase unique identifier, which is available in auth state.uid. So this is our user node in Firebase. I'm going to subscribe to this to get the user. And now I can get the access token. So I'm going to cut this line and put it here. And for this template parameter, I'm going to use user.accessToken. So this is the URL for our Graph API endpoint. And finally, I'm going to call this using our HTTP service. So this.http get URL, Now this returns an observable, so I will subscribe to it. Get a response here. We need to convert this to JSON, and then we'll have access to first name and last name. So let user be response.json. So this user object will have properties like first underline name, last name, and so on. I'm going to use these properties and update our user node in the database. So user ref, which is our user node, dot update. And here we can set first name to user dot first underline name, and last name to user dot last underline name. That's all we have to do. Now this code is executed every time the user logs in. So every time they log in, we're going to update their first name and last name with values we get from Graph API. In your application, you may decide to have an additional if check. So if the user object exists in the database, maybe you don't want to update it. It's entirely up to you. So let's look at the result. Save. Back to the browser. So I'm logged in. Now, back to our Firebase database. Look, our user object has access token, first name, and last name. And we got these additional properties with a call to Graph API. Now in your application, you might use a different permission. So instead of public profile, you might have user likes. There you will have a question mark, like here. And if you click that, you can find the documentation about the endpoint in Graph API, and then you can use that to get whatever information you need. So that's pretty much it. I know a lot of people have had problem with accessing additional information on Facebook. I hope this lecture clarified for you, and thank you for watching.